You got a raise. You did the math on what it would add to each paycheck. You felt the relief. And then, a few weeks later, you noticed something. Nothing changed. The paycheck still disappears on the same schedule. The grocery bill still stings. The rent still takes the same chunk. And somewhere in the back of your mind a question forms that feels almost ungrateful to think. Why doesn't this feel different? A teacher in Phoenix got a 3.8% raise last spring. She told her husband they could finally start saving something. 2 months later, she checked the account. They had saved $40 more than the month before. Not $40 a week, $40 total. The raise was real. The result was not what she expected. This video is about why that happens and what to do about it. I'm Cole. If you want to keep seeing the gap between what you're told and what's actually happening, subscribe to Cole Capital. No products, just the documented mechanism. Meet Destiny, 29 years old, licensed practical nurse in Columbus, Ohio. In 2021, she was earning $48,000 a year, consistent with the BLS median for Ohio LPNs at the time. Over 5 years, she received steady raises, nothing dramatic, consistent, responsible. By 2026, she earns approximately $55,700. That is a cumulative raise of about 16%. She is not reckless. She is not a big spender. She tracks her budget seriously. And she cannot understand why her financial life feels identical to how it felt 5 years ago. Here is why. While Destiny's wages grew 16%, the Consumer Price Index grew approximately 22% over the same period. Her wages went up, prices went up more. Her rent makes it even sharper. In 2021, a 2-bedroom apartment in Columbus averaged roughly $1,050 per month. In 2026, that same apartment averages $1,408. That is a 34% increase. Her wages grew 16%. Her rent grew 34%. And here is how that shows up in the national data, because Destiny is not the exception. Before the pandemic, the average American household saved 7.6 cents of every dollar they earned. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, as of February 2026, that number is 4.0 cents, 3.5 cents per dollar, gone. Not because Americans suddenly became less disciplined, because the gap between what wages buy and what expenses cost quietly closed, and savings was the first thing that disappeared. The savings rate does not lie. It dropped before most people could name what was happening. A warehouse supervisor in Atlanta. He got a 4.1% raise in 2023. His car insurance went up 22% that year. His grocery bill went up 11%. His rent renewed at 18% higher. The raise arrived and was immediately absorbed by costs that had already moved months earlier. He described it as trying to fill a bathtub with the drain open. The water is real, the tub never fills. Here is the mechanism. Economists call it wage stickiness. When inflation rises, prices do not wait. The stock market reprices in days, housing reprices in months, groceries reprice in weeks, wages reprice on an employer's payroll cycle, annual review, performance period, budget approval. During the high inflation years of 2021 to 2023, nearly half of all workers saw their wages fail to keep up with rising prices in real terms, not because their employers were evil, because wages structurally lag by 12 to 18 months after an inflation event, documented in Federal Reserve wage price studies. By the time Destiny's raise arrived, it was compensating for prices that had already settled at their new level. It was not a raise toward tomorrow, it was a catch-up to yesterday. There is a name for this whole sequence. Richard Cantillon, an economist writing in 1755, was the first person to document it clearly. When new money enters an economy, it does not land evenly. It flows first to whoever is closest to the source: asset owners, financial institutions, large corporations, then consumer prices, then wages. Think about what that looks like in practice. The Federal Reserve makes a monetary decision on a Tuesday. The stock market responds by Friday. Destiny's landlord responds when the lease renews, 12 months later. Destiny's employer responds at the next annual review, 18 months after that. Everyone in that sequence got paid before she did. That is not bad luck. That is the architecture.
3 myths, fast. Myth 1. You got a raise, so you're ahead. Only if the raise percentage exceeded CPI for the same period. A 4% raise in a 5% inflation year is a 1% pay cut. That is arithmetic. Myth 2. Inflation is mostly gas and groceries. Shelter, rent, and housing costs is 34.4% of the CPI basket, the single largest component. Gas gets the headlines, rent takes the money. And unlike gas prices which move up and down, rent increases lock in and stay. Myth 3. Just ask for a bigger raise. This is the natural instinct, and it is not completely wrong, but a bigger raise still arrives on the employer's timeline. It still lags the inflation that already moved. It still comes after rent renewed, after groceries repriced, after insurance went up. A bigger raise is a faster treadmill. The machine still controls the speed. The only way to stop losing the race is to build income that does not run on the same clock. Myth 4. Wages catch up eventually. They do, but for Destiny, that gap cost her approximately $9,800 in real purchasing power over 5 years. Not eventually, already gone. A nurse in Denver. I stopped opening my raise letter with excitement. Now I immediately check what my rent and groceries cost. That's the real test. And for 3 years straight, I lost. That is not a personal failure. That is the design.
3 moves, real numbers. Things you can start within 48 hours. Move 1. Calculate your real raise right now. Go to bls.gov/CPI. Find the CPI increase for the 12 months your raise covered. Subtract it from your raise percentage. If the number is negative, you took a purchasing power pay cut, regardless of what the notification said. When Destiny runs this calculation for her January 2025 raise, 4.2% raise against a 2.9% CPI increase for the same period, her real raise was 1.3%. On a $54,000 salary, that is $702 in real additional purchasing power for the year, $58.50 a month. That is what the raise delivered in practice. Knowing your real number changes how you negotiate the next one. Move 2. Find the one expense that outran your wages. For most people, it is rent. Calculate its percentage increase over the last 3 years. Compare it to your cumulative wage growth over the same period. For Destiny, her rent went from $1,050 to $1,408, an increase of $358 per month. That is $4,296 more per year leaving her account than in 2021. Her wages grew by approximately $7,700 over those same 5 years. $4,296 of that $7,700, more than half, went directly to rent before she made a single decision with it. That is not a spending habits problem. That is a structural cost problem. Name it. Write it down in dollars per year. That is your actual drag, not your coffee. Move 3. Start one income source that does not wait for a payroll cycle. Here is what that looks like with Destiny's real numbers. She puts $100 a month into a high-yield savings account at 4.5%. After 5 years, $6,000 deposited, approximately $340 in interest. That interest arrives every month on the bank schedule, not her employer's. She puts another $100 a month into a total market index fund at the historical average of 10% annual return After 5 years, that's approximately $7,700. That $1,700 in growth arrived because the market moved, not because her employer approved a budget line. Neither number is retirement money alone, but together they represent income that does not wait. Every dollar that begins to move off the wage income timeline stops arriving last. Destiny's raise was real. She earned it. She deserved it. The problem is not what she did. The problem is the treadmill it arrived on, the one calibrated to stay exactly one step ahead. You can run faster. The machine adjusts. There is no prize for not noticing this, and there is no shame in having noticed it now. Your raise was real. The problem is that inflation is faster, and the system that delivers your wages was built to always arrive second.